A trading plan pretty much does what it says on the tin, right? It's essentially just a document that describes your systematic approach to trading your defined edge in the market with your entry, exit, and risk management rules. So, in simpler words, your trading plan is just your trading strategy written down pretty much, right? Now, you will have this plan either printed out on your desk or on the wall beside your computer, or at the very minimum, have it on your Notion dashboard, just to make sure that it is somewhere that you can easily access it, especially all times when you are trading, because you will be reading this before and during every single trading session so that it is constantly at the forefront of your mind, because this literally will be your trading Bible. Now, over the course of the next few modules, you are first going to create your own individually tailored trading plan. And this will initially be a very rough and basic plan because you have not yet had the opportunity to actually test your plan, to trade it, and to figure out exactly how you want to trade the strategy. But before you can actually start that process of testing and trading, you obviously need a plan as a starting point, right? Because you need that plan written down, first in order to actually be able to test that plan. You can't just start firing into any old trade that maybe you think resembles the strategy, because that's just going to be a recipe for disaster. And any data that you might be collecting, it's going to be pretty much irrelevant at that point because the data is not a part of a defined strategy. So the first step is just to get your very, very kind of rough first draft of your plan written down, and then everything will build from there. So once you have that first draft, you'll then begin the testing phase, which is what we will cover in depth in the next module. And then once you've tested it and you've collected data to prove that it does have a profitable edge, you can now begin to start to trade it in the live market and see how you get on. Then as you gain more experience, you gain more data on how your trading plan, how it actually plays out in the market, you can then refine your plan, make improvements and evolve it based on that hard cold data that you have collected to actually improve your edge even more. And then finally, you will then create your next version of your plan and repeat the entire process. And this process will continue for the rest of your trading career. Your trading plan is, it's literally a living and breathing document which you will always be evolving as both yourself and the market evolves with it. Now, obviously, when you create a new plan or even just a revised version of your plan, and once you've tested it, you don't have to start trading it live or on demo straight away. You, of course, can keep refining your plan based on your testing data until you get it to a stage that you're pretty happy with, and then you can start to trade it live once you've got it to that point. So that's pretty much the journey that we're going to go on together throughout the next few modules. Now, if you can't describe what you are doing as a process, then you don't know what you're doing. So your eventual goal is to have a full flowchart diagram that describes the complete end-to-end process of your strategy with an if-then and a yes-no format, so that a robot could almost literally execute it for you. Now, as you've probably experienced and been thinking as you've been going through the technical analysis lessons, there is quite a lot of moving parts to the strategy, and it definitely can be pretty overwhelming when you're first learning this style, especially if you are brand new to trading in general. So creating a trading plan, it can seem like quite a daunting task because your level of understanding and your experience with the strategy, it's still in its very early and premature stages. And don't worry, that's absolutely normal and okay. So, don't worry or stress about that. But if you follow the steps as laid out in this course, if you continue to study the content, and if you continue to put in the hard work, it's literally only a matter of time before it will all click and it will all become extremely simple and second nature to you, whereby you achieve that fourth stage of competence. Remember, that's when you are unconsciously competent, where you can drive your car home without even thinking about it. You will get to that point with your trading. But then you can literally boil your trading plan. You can boil it down to just a few key words that you look at before and during each training session. And those key words of kind of your simplified trading plan, that will encompass all of the detail and the complexity of your process that you now subconsciously understand. But simple can be harder than complex. You have to work really hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple. But it's worth it in the end, because once you get there, you can move mountains. So I knew someone who was a chef, and quite early in their career, they had a bit of a tendency to make their dishes extremely complex because, understandably, they thought that was how things worked. More stuff on the plate, must equal more skill, and therefore surely that must lead to more rewards, right? But then this young chef, he went to a Michelin star restaurant, and at the time it was regarded as one of the best in Europe. And the head chef at this restaurant, he was a fair bit older than him, and he had been in the game for a very, very long time. And this Michelin star chef, he only ever put just 3 things on the plate. Just 3 things, nothing more. And the simplicity blew the junior chef away. But more than that, it was the level of execution of those ingredients that impressed him. Everything was simple, but literally perfect. So after his meal, the junior chef went and spoke with the Michelin star head chef of the restaurant, and the head chef told him that he had also gone through kind of that exact same process as him when he was younger as well, when he was starting out in his career, where he kind of found himself overcomplicating everything and trying to make these really high complex meals. But the Michelin star chef, he said that he was thankful that, he'd gone through that journey, because the complexity of his approach initially, that complexity, that gave him the knowledge that was required in order to now be able to execute the simplicity of his dishes perfectly. So the lesson here for us is that elegance and consistency, that actually comes from simplicity, that simple recipe that he now has. But to get to that level of simplicity, first you need the deep understanding, and that deep understanding that actually comes from the initial complexity. So what I'm trying to say here is that your first few initial versions of your trade plans, they might actually be quite complex. Where you're writing out a lot of your process, and there'll be a lot of words and a lot of explanation, and that's fine because that can, really, really help you at the start. But eventually you will find, kind of as you go along and you get more experienced and you kind of really refine your style, you will boil it down to just a few key sentences on one page. So you should end up with one very simple trade plan, and then also your full end-to-end process laid out as a separate flowchart diagram alongside that. But of course, that short, simplified trade plan, that is what you will be looking at before and during every single trading session. Now, there are a lot of things that you can include in the contents of your plan, but I would recommend that you have these 3 components as the bare minimum. So as long as you define how you will enter the market, how you will then exit your positions out of the market, and how much you will risk on those positions, then you are pretty much good to go. So the very first time you create this, make it as simple or as complex as you need to, but just get something down for all 3 of these sections, because you just need something that you can then go and test. And then once you're testing it, then you can start that process of refinement. But you just need the starting point. So, don't try and kind of perfect it straight away, because it's pretty much going to be impossible. Just make sure you get going. Now, there are, of course, other sections that you can add, such as diagrams of your entry model, screenshots of actual trade examples from your plan. You may want to list the specific trading hours that you will trade within, list the pair or pairs that you actually trade, and if you trade multiple pairs, you may have slightly different rules for each pair. And I haven't listed it here, but you can even go in a lot of detail on kind of your risk management and your risk limit rules as well. So of course this is not an exhaustive list, but just something to get you thinking about. Now in the next lesson, I will show you kind of a beginner's trading system that you can use as an example to kind of see how this could potentially all be laid out for you. Now trading is an individual sport. I can teach you the theory and I can show you how I trade, but ultimately the responsibility falls on you and no one else. It's just you who is going to be pressing buy and sell. No one's going to do that for you. You are here to become an independent and consistently profitable trader. That is going to require you to build, develop, and evolve your trading plan into something that is unique to you. Now, of course, it will still be heavily based on the core concepts, but you then need to take those and mold it into something that makes most sense to you, that suits your trading psychology, and that you can actually execute with your current lifestyle and your current routines. Trading, it's not rigid with very hard and fast rules. People make their own interpretations based on the theories and the concepts provided and trade what they believe to be right. There's a million ways to make money in the markets. Odds are that you're not going to be good at scalping, day trading, swing trading, and position trading. If you try to do them all, you will most likely end up being, a mediocre jack of all trades and a master of none. So don't spread yourself too thin at the surface level, because to truly reap the benefits of one strategy, you have to sacrifice the others. Identifying what you should focus on and specialize in is where that compounding momentum will take off. So go deep on that and specialize, because that's where your processes and your results will become more predictable, scalable, and sustainable. Style drift comes from not clearly defining your strategy and your goals. As a result, you won't stay with your approach through the thick and thin. If you are a short-term day trader, you must recognize that exiting a trade, for a quick 50 pip profit, only then to watch it go on for another 300 pips, that is of no real concern to you, because you specialize in and operate in a particular zone of an instrument's price movement. But someone else, they might operate in a totally different area of the curve, but both traders can be successful. However, if you are a longer term trader, there's going to be many times where you are running in a decent amount of profit, but only to give it all back in the pursuit of trying to capture a much larger move. But the key is to just focus on a particular style. And then once you define your style and your objectives, it will then become much easier to stick to a plan and to attain success. And then in time, you will be rewarded for your sacrifice with your own speciality. And it takes the same commitment that you would make in a relationship. How good a marriage do you think you would have if you kept cheating on your spouse? A trading strategy is the same. You need to be faithful to it for it to give back to you. Because just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should do it. So if we know that if we spread ourselves too thin up here, on the top surface level, it's very unlikely that we're going to really reap the benefits of a particular style of trading unless we dig deep down into it and specialize. So we know that digging below the surface, that is where the oil is, that is where the treasure is, and that is where the real gold lies. So when we're up on the surface and we can see all of these different ways of trading, how do we know where the oil is below? How do we know where to start drilling down to the surface? Because one way to drill would be to just start, randomly drilling all over the place and just finding out, through process of elimination where that oil is and where the gold lies. That's going to be quite, time inefficient. And you could waste a lot of money, drilling down into all the wrong areas, right? So that begs the question, how do we work out exactly where it is that we should spend our time and where we should spend our resources drilling down into to find that oil, to find the gold that lurks deep beneath the surface? Well, there are a few steps to this. First, you need to get real with exactly who you are and where it is that you want to go. Because once we identify this, we can then move forward and determine precisely what actions you need to take to get there. And this is the time to get real with yourself so that you can map out a clear plan of action and move forward unimpeded. So there are 4 main steps to figuring that out. And the first step is to very clearly define your trading goals. So what are you trying to achieve and why? But you must also consider your current lifestyle. So what are your current time constraints and commitments? And then it's time to dig deep into your trading history and your journey so far, really looking under the hood at everything, the good, the bad, the failures, and pull out all of the lessons that you can find from here, because there will be many if you spend the time to look hard enough. Now, of course, if you are new to trading or you are new to this strategy, then you will not have a relevant trading journal just yet to go through now. So this step does not apply to you just yet. But these steps, the next 2 steps that we're going to look at, number 3 and number 4, they are for when you are refining and improving your already established trade plan. So, you will study your trade journal to try and identify the patterns and commonalities within your past trades so that you can implement rules to help you to do, more of what works and to do less of what isn't working for you. And then once you do this, you will pretty likely find that you're going to identify some psychological blockages that you may have that are actually holding you back. But once you identify those, first, you must find out exactly why you have those blockages, and then you can implement steps to help you overcome them so that they no longer hold you back and limit your growth. And now you will be able to rise to that next level. So spend some time getting very clear and honest with yourself on what you are trying to achieve and why. Because if you want to become a full-time trader, then it will most likely make sense to develop a strategy that's quite active, maybe hands-on, maybe on the intraday timeframes, because you will be able to, be at your computer screen undisturbed. But if you want to trade around your current job, or maybe even running, another business that you own or you work within, of course, this is also possible. Contrary to what Instagram might make you believe, you don't actually have to quit your 9-to-5 job to be considered a professional trader. But you must be realistic and adapt your strategy to work around your job or business. You will not be able to be on the charts and probably actively trading the same way a full-time trader can be. Now, it's very similar for if you are someone who wishes to travel and trade. You will most likely want to either develop a longer term hands-off strategy where you are setting risk entries on the longer term timeframes with kind of that set and forget management, or go to the complete other extreme and maybe you just want to day trade, 1 or 2 days a week, for example, where on those days you do not travel or explore that day, but you dedicate those days, that time solely to trading. So when you're thinking, about your trading goals, do not focus on that sort of end result, i.e., you want to replace your income with your trading profits. Instead, focus on the process and the lifestyle. What lifestyle do you want to live? Because it's that lifestyle and that process that is actually going to get you that result. It's very common for people to want the monetary results that successful trading can bring, but it's not so common to desire the lifestyle that result requires. Now, by lifestyle, I don't mean, what house you're going to live in and what car you're going to drive. What I mean is, what is your everyday life trading routine going to look like to achieve that result that you want each day? So start thinking about this now. Then once you have a clear idea of what your goal is and what you're trying to achieve with your trading, then you can start to plan out the steps that you need to take to get there. And a big part that is going to determine what steps you can actually take will be what your current lifestyle is. So what are your current time constraints? What commitments do you have? Do you have dependents? Do you have young kids, or maybe you care for someone? Do you have a 9-to-5 job? If so, do you have regular access to your trading charts? Think about what time frame can you actually enter on? What time frame can you manage your trades on? Is it realistic that you will be able to monitor the 1-minute chart for entries during work? You might need to drop your ego a little bit. Don't worry about trying to get, a 2-pip stop, and instead build a trading system around the M15 risk entries, for example. Maybe using the M15 or even the 4-hour for entries, that could be a lot more sustainable for you, and you'll actually have better results in a quicker period of time. So maybe you just need to, look at a few more pairs if you're going to be looking on those higher time frames, and that will be looking, working better for you. And if it's just not realistic to split your focus between your job or your business, or maybe you do something that means that you don't even have access to, the internet or your computer when you're working, then swing trading will probably be a lot more realistic for you, right? Focusing on those higher time frame moves. Now, another major thing to consider is what time zone do you live in? For instance, if you live in New York, and I believe you are in the Eastern time zone, then the London session starts around 3 a.m. for you. So are you going to get up early to be on the charts for 3 a.m.? How realistic is it that you can then trade the London session through the early hours of the night and still perform your job during the day and keep your health and your mental well-being intact? Because some people can do it and they feel that the sacrifice is worth it, but most can't. So figure that out and be honest with yourself and just pick what is most sustainable. And maybe you can, even look at concentrating on currency pairs that, sometimes move more during the New York session and even the Asian session. So pairs like Aussie dollar and the Japanese pairs, the Japanese yen pairs, and specialize in those. Now, if you really want to hang out on the beach and you want to travel the world, then you should probably work on swing trading or even position trading strategies, because it's not really that realistic that you're probably going to have, great Wi-Fi on the beach or by the pool and, the sand in your laptop or the sun glare on your screen. It's not really realistic that's going to affect your trading intraday, right? But if you like the excitement of facing a new trading day with a clean slate, just trading for a few hours, then day trading might be for you. Now, you might think that day trading sounds sexy, but if you have a demanding job and 2 kids, maybe it's not that realistic for you, right? But only you are going to know this, but just try to be honest with yourself now, and you'll save yourself a lot of time and headaches. You'll find quicker success, but more importantly, sustainable and scalable success. By sticking to what you can currently execute, so design your trader plan around a style that actually fits that. Obviously, then once you achieve your goal and your lifestyle changes, then you can adjust and adapt your trade plan to fit that, right? As I said, the beauty of the strategy is that it's based on price action. I've shown you the blueprint and all the tools that you need, but now it's down to you to kind of take that and tailor all of that and tailor that strategy to suit your lifestyle. Now, we'll talk about journaling a lot more in a future lesson, so we're not going to cover this in depth now, but kind of a quick point is that when you are revising and improving your trade plan, going forward, analyzing your trade journal will play a large role in this. So you will essentially be trying to look for repeat patterns and commonalities in your winning trades, and then the same, of course, for all of your losing trades. So this way, you can work out how you can do more of what is working and less of what isn't, so that you can implement new rules into your trade plan to avoid repeating those same failings. Now, don't rush this process. It's not glamorous. It is pretty boring, I'm not going to pretend it isn't, but it is one of the single most effective things that you can do to make a quantum leap forward with your results. Because if you spend a week, a month, however long it takes you to do it properly, get it done, the lessons will be in there. Some of the biggest lessons and improvements that you can actually make with your trading will be in there. Digging through your journal, that is the work that other traders, they just simply are not doing. So if you do it, you are literally giving yourself a massive edge over them. And in that previous step, where you have reviewed your trading history, you will probably have found technical problems with your strategy, which you can make simple kind of adjustments and improve with new rules in your plan. But you will also probably find that you are making the same silly human errors again and again. So this final step, step 4, it's all about finding the why. Why are you making those same mistakes? And you need to identify your psychological blockages. And there is a lot of introspection that goes into this process. What are the main barriers that are holding you back? And then what is your plan for actually overcoming them? The more reflection, self-review, and contemplation that you perform as a trader, the quicker you will progress. For instance, when you review your journal and you kind of look through the data, you might spot that, every time you lost the first 2 trades of the day, your results then spiraled and you took a lot more losses when this happened. So very simply, you can implement a pretty simple risk management rule to just stop trading for the day if you take 2 losses, for example. Now, this lesson is not about trading psychology. We will cover this in a lot more depth later. But for now, you just need to understand the 4-step process to go through each time you are revising, updating, and improving your trade plan. And that's how you can define your own trading personality and actually create a plan that is individually tailored to you. Because once you have that, you will massively increase the chances of you actually adhering to your strategy rules, which in turn then increases the probability of you achieving long-term consistent results. Now, in the next lesson, I'm going to show you a relatively basic trading system for you to use as an example to see how you can begin to structure your own trading plan.